Right now, as you watch this, the UK government is spending over £3,000 every single second just on interest. Not on the NHS, not on schools, not on social care, just on the cost of holding its own debt. By the time this video ends, that's another £2 million added to a mountain of debt you are legally responsible for. As of early 2026, the UK's national debt has crossed a terrifying milestone, £2.9 trillion. That is a number so large it's hard to visualize. If you stacked £1 coins, it would reach the moon and back, twice. When you break that down, it's a burden of over £43,000 for every person in Britain. Today, we're going behind the headlines. We aren't just looking at boring spreadsheets, we're looking at the hidden ledger. We're going to see exactly how we got here, who actually owns your future, and why this trillion-pound trap is the single biggest threat to your way of life. To understand how we became a debt nation, we have to go back to 1694. London was a city of shadows, and King William III was in a desperate fight for survival. He had a war to win against the French, but the royal treasury was empty. Nobody would lend him money because the crown had a bad habit of not paying it back. The solution was a radical financial experiment, the founding of the Bank of England. A group of wealthy merchants lent the king £1.2 million in gold. In exchange, they were granted the right to call themselves a bank and, crucially, to charge interest on that debt indefinitely. This was the birth of permanent national debt. For 300 years, this system was actually a secret weapon. It allowed Britain to outspend its rivals. They borrowed to build the most powerful navy on Earth and used it to create a global trade empire. Even after the Napoleonic Wars, the debt was staggering. But Britain had a young, booming population and an industrial revolution that grew the economy faster than the debt could catch up. But history is a cycle, and the engine that powered it for centuries has started to seize up. In the early 2000s, the UK's debt was relatively stable. But then came the waves of ruin. The first was the 2008 crash. When the global banking system melted down, the UK government stepped in to prevent a total collapse. They didn't just spend tax money, they printed digital money to bail out the banks. Over £1 trillion was effectively created out of thin air to stop the ATMs from going dark. Then came the second wave in 2020. The lockdowns forced the government to pay the wages of half the country. Britain was borrowing £1 billion every single day to keep the lights on. It was the fastest spike in debt since the dark days of 1940. But the third wave is the one that is currently breaking overhead. The interest rate trap. For a decade, interest rates were nearly zero. The government convinced itself that debt was free. But in 2026, that lie has been exposed. Interest rates have climbed, and suddenly the minimum payment on the UK's credit card has become the biggest expense in the budget. We are now in a debt spiral where we have to borrow more money just to pay the interest on the money we already borrowed. It is a common myth that we owe all this money to China or a shadowy cabal of international bankers. The reality is much more personal. About 25% of the debt is held by the Bank of England, essentially the government owing itself money. But the rest? It's held by the private sector. If you have a workplace pension, an ISA, or even a life insurance policy, you are the one who owns the UK's debt. The government is borrowing from your future retirement to pay for the present day. However, 28% of our debt, nearly £800 billion, is held by foreign investors. These are international funds that can move their money at the click of a button. If they lose faith in the British pound, they sell their government bonds. This causes the currency to crash, making your petrol, your food, and your technology more expensive overnight. We saw a glimpse of this panic in 2022. In 2026, that panic is always just one bad headline away. Think about what this means for the average household. This isn't just a government problem, it is a weight on every decision made in this country. When you see a pothole that isn't fixed, or a hospital waiting list that grows longer, you are seeing the direct result of the interest payments eating the budget alive. We are currently spending more on debt interest than we spend on the entire defense budget. We are a nation that is effectively paying for its past at the expense of its future. Every child born in the UK today arrives with a £43,000 bill draped around their neck before they even take their first breath. Every empire that has reached this level of debt throughout history has eventually faced the same three final options. Option 1 is real growth, growing the economy so fast that a £3 trillion debt looks small. But with an aging population and slow productivity, this looks more like a dream than a plan. Option 2 is brutal taxation, taxing the citizens until there is nothing left. But with the UK tax burden already at its highest since the 1940s, we are reaching the point where people simply stop working because it isn't worth the effort. Option 3 is the silent thief, inflation. This is the one governments love most. They let the value of money drop. If the pound is worth less, the debt is easier to pay back because the numbers stay the same while the value shrinks. But for you, it means your savings are worth less and your hard work is slowly being erased by an invisible tax. The £43,000 on your head isn't just a statistic. It's the invisible wall stopping the UK from building a better future. The trap is set and the clock is ticking. Before we go, consider this. The UK isn't the only one in this trap. Japan's debt is over 250% of their GDP, yet their economy hasn't collapsed yet. It proves that as long as people believe in the system, the clock keeps ticking. But for how much longer? We are tracking the shift in global wealth every single week. If you want to see the echoes before they become headlines, hit subscribe and join the community below. This is Echoes from History. Don't let the past be your future.